So, you've decided you want to own a pet tarantula. Well, as a tarantula owner, there's a few things you're going to need. First off is the tarantula, of course. But before you get the tarantula, you should get a terrarium. It can really be as big as you want it to be, but it can't be too small. It has to be able to house the tarantula, somewhere for it to hide in, its water dish, soil, and some type of log. You want one that can lock on the front. This terrarium has this little flicky knob right here, as well as clips on the top that allows you to lift up the lid. The lid has meshing on it, which is what you want. You want to make sure there is airflow in and out of the cage. Next thing you're going to need is soil. On top of just plain old potting soil, you also want to get tree fern and vermiculite. The vermiculite helps with humidity and it just keeps it comfortable for the tarantula. And on the terrarium, on this kind, the one that I have here, you want to fill it up to about here with soil and whatnot. Also, there are two different kinds you can get. One's for arboreals and one for terrestrials. This one is for a terrestrial tarantula. The ones for arboreal tarantulas are taller because they like to climb a lot. The next thing you'll need is some type of water dish. The tarantulas don't actually drink the water, but it keeps the humidity up, and if the tarantulas do get thirsty enough to need water, then they have the water available. Next thing you'll need is some type of driftwood for them to climb on top of and just, have fun with. I have a few different ones here that I just kind of interchange. This one's a little neat one. Next thing you're going to need is a place for it to hide and crawl into. I've got these two different ones. They're both made out of wood. They're just pretty much chunks of log. The one I have in my tarantula's cage is half a coconut. It's small, which is what I like, so it works out well. Next thing you're going to need is some type of heating mat to stick onto the side of your terrarium. These will keep the temperature at a proper level, because you don't want it too cold and you don't want it too warm. You'll also want to invest in a heat lamp that hooks onto the top of your terrarium that has a red light and has an easy turn off, turn on switch. This is only really necessary when it gets too cold out, so if you live in an area that's really, really warm, the heat lamp isn't really all that necessary. Now, also you're going to need a thermometer and a hydrometer as well to monitor the temperature and the humidity in the terrarium. Personally, I prefer the digital ones, because I think they last longer mostly. And next thing you're going to need is food for the tarantula. Obviously, they eat crickets. Buying a little cricket container is what I would recommend. You get a free little container if you buy them in the packages, but still. And in there you're going to want a piece of cardboard for the crickets to crawl all over, and two little dishes. You can sort of see them there. One for food, one for water. Now, you do not want to give the crickets actual tap water, because they can easily drown in it. Instead, you want to get them pretty much gelatinous water. It's like little jello water. This one's orange. The one I used to have was like blue in coloration, but it's pretty darn empty. Now you want to look at what's in these, because depending on what's in them, you might also need calcium powder. The first one I have here does not have calcium added into it. You can't even read the label on that thing. But basically, when you are feeding the tarantula, if you're using water that doesn't have any calcium in it, or food that doesn't have any calcium in it, you want to powder them with calcium. And this is because tarantulas tend to have a calcium deficiency, so this way you make sure they get enough calcium. However, luckily with the new cricket food I have, it is calcium fortified. Now, the food, this is the food that I have. It's just literally cheap bug tub. And they seem to love it, so it works out pretty well. Another thing I would get is tweezers. You can use these for pulling things out of the cage. for picking up crickets and putting them into the cage, for removing things from the cricket container. So this thing is handy. Get one. Another thing, if you were just a starter, I would suggest picking up tarantula books. These are the two I have. Tarantulas and Other Arachnids. And this one. This one is literally a starter's book. This one has better information in it, but it's a little less easy and straightforward than this one. And this one here is about $12. This one has no price on it. So yeah. So that's what you'll need for your tarantula.